It is the eve of the Premier League season and everyone has an opinion, everyone wants to have a prediction. I thought, let's sit down and make a mug of ourselves. Let's be honest, you come to watch these videos on YouTube, you either get really annoyed because I don't rate your team highly enough, or you, well, just laugh because you think I'm horrifically wrong. Maybe we'll be looking back on this at the end of the year thinking, wow, Jack, you're an absolute genius. Or probably not, though. So starting down in 20th place, and to be honest, the two teams I have at the bottom could kind of be either way round. I've got Fulham. Now, there's a reason that I have Fulham down here. They're a yo-yo team, right? 5 years, they've been in 5 different divisions every season. They just keep moving up and down. Mitrovic, every year I've got him in my fantasy football team. He never plays well. I hold a grudge against him. That may have played a factor why I put them behind the team in 19th. I feel like Fulham have got promoted and spent a load of money in previous years. This year, they've got promoted and they've not spent as much money. Now, don't get me wrong. I like some of the transfers they've made. Pelinia, Solomon, and Babu. Leno's joined them just a couple of days ago. These are players that if they click, could really see them climb up the league. But I am concerned about their lack of kind of established Premier League players. Players who have done this before. Obviously, in the past, they've spent much larger sums of money. This year, they've been a little more conservative. I know they won the championship last year. I know Mitrovic could get 20 goals and I'll just look like an idiot. And I'll probably have him in my fantasy football team by the end of the year. But I've been burnt by them before, and that's why I've got them bottom. So in at 19th, I've got another newly promoted team, and it's Bournemouth. Do Bournemouth know the transfer window's open? Do they know they've been promoted? Has anyone told them? I mean, they've signed a couple of players. Ryan Fredericks could be a good player if he stays fit. Tavernier from Middlesbrough, Rothwell as well as joined them. But again, it's just not the kind of quality I expect them to have. I think a lot is going to hang on the shoulders of big Dom Solanke. Much like Fulham, if you can get a goal scorer that gets 15 goals in the season as a newly promoted team, you'll stay up. But I look at Solanke, I look at Mitrovic. They've not done it before. Maybe they're players that have got better. They had good seasons in the Championship. But I just feel like they need better players around them. Yeah, Bournemouth, I fear you're going down. Now, this next one could be controversial because it's not a newly promoted team. Yeah, Forest fans, celebrate, rejoice. I think you might stay up. We'll talk about you. This is Brentford's moment. Let's talk about Brentford. Look, Brentford under Thomas Frank last year were great. They had a wobbly period during the season, but they rode it out. They had some key injuries to players like Raya in goal. Eriksson came in and really galvanised them to end the season. But he's not here for the next year. I mean, Eriksson's gone to Manchester United. I look across their team, and whilst I think it's a solid team, I am just a little bit worried about second season syndrome for Brentford. I think they've done great last year. I think they overperformed a little bit last year. And I just fear that with the overall standard of the Premier League, I think stepping up a little bit. I think the teams that went down last year were some of the weaker teams. This could be a problem for Brentford going into this new season. So the next team in my list in 17th is Southampton. Now, Southampton have actually made some really good signings this year. I think Aribo's a good signing, Bazunu's a great signing, Lavia as well, getting in a lot of younger players into their squad. My concern is that Southampton seem to either finish top half or be in a relegation battle, and there's never really an in-between. And I don't see them having that top half battle this year. I think there's a few teams in the middle of the Premier League who have stepped up, and I do feel like Southampton are a little bit on the back foot. I think James Ward-Prowse is going to be absolutely massive for them again this year. I mean, they need a striker, don't they? I feel like before the transfer deadline closes. If they don't get in a striker, I think they're in trouble. Shall we talk about Everton? I guess we should, because I have got them down in 16th in the list. A team who looked like at one point last year they could actually go down. I think lots of people were hoping they were going down, and it was a bit disappointing when it didn't happen. This summer, they've been a little bit slow to get transfer business done, but Dwight McNeil's been confirmed very recently. They've got Tarkowski in, who I don't really know what to expect from Tarkowski. I don't think he was very good for Burnley over the last few years. Ruben Vinagre has joined them on loan. I think I had him in my fantasy football team once when he was a Wolves player, and I've not been following his career since. He let me down back then. Maybe my FPL bias really shows through here. I feel like I harbour grudges. Look, let's be real here. Everton, they struggled last year. They've not invested that much money just yet. I don't really rate Frank Lampard. Is that controversial? I don't know if that's controversial. Let me know. Either way, I think they're going to be in a bit of a scrap towards the bottom. If they could get top half, I think that would be a pretty big overachievement with what they've got. Calvert-Lewin out for the first 6 weeks of the season as well. I fear it's going to be another struggle towards the bottom of the table. I'm going to say something potentially controversial here. I don't think Jesse Marsch was very good last season at Leeds. I know he kept them up, but I don't necessarily feel like he deserves all the credit for it. And I look at Leeds' team, I look at the departures of Rafinha. I know Calvin Phillips didn't play a lot last year, but I think he's still going to be a pretty big miss for them. I'm saying all these negatives. You might be wondering, Jack, why are they in 15th? Why are they not lower down the league? And the simple answer is, I think they've actually made some semi-good signings. I think Sinisterra from Feyenoord could be a really, really good player if he finds his groove. There's a lot of players that come over from the Netherlands and don't hit the ground running in the Premier League, so maybe there's a little bit of a concern there. But I look at players like Christiansen at right back, Aronson as well, two players who could end up linking up out on the right-hand side, although I do think Aronson might end up playing more down the middle. Of course, Patrick Bamford, who missed so much of last season, is going to be back in the team. His goals are going to be essential. Naturally, last year, they just about avoided the drop right at the end. This year, I do think they're going to make a little bit more progress. I think there's going to be a few players in their team that maybe surprise people, especially some of the new signings that I don't necessarily feel like are being bigged up too much just yet. But at the same time, I kind of feel like a mid to bottom half finish is about as good as Leeds can expect this season. Okay, this one could be controversial. I don't know. Teams spend a lot of money in the Premier League and then end up going down. Remember that year where Fulham got promoted, spent a load of money and went down? In at number 14, Nottingham Forest. They've spent a lot of money, haven't they? I think they've spent the most money of a newly promoted team ever. I think they've signed kind of 8 or 9 new players at the time I'm recording. Who, by the time I finish recording, they're probably going to have signed another 6 players the way that they're going. I have concerns about their team gelling together, but they're a team that, after a very slow start to the season in the Championship, ended it very strongly. I kind of anticipate them to keep that momentum going into this year. I think this could be a really interesting season for Steve Cooper at the helm of Nottingham Forest. I think he's a manager who maybe didn't get a lot of credit for what he did with Forest last year, especially from people who traditionally follow the Premier League. I think he could surprise a few people. I don't want to label him the next Graham Potter, but I think he could be the kind of manager who comes to the league without a lot of fanfare, and maybe if Forest start well, play well, we'll be hearing him linked with all kinds of jobs. I'm putting my neck out on the line here. It could come back to bite me amazingly. I look at Dean Henderson at the back and think he's got to have a good year. But I've just got this feeling that with Jesse Lingard in the middle pulling the strings and the other new players they've signed like Omar Richards, things really could just click for Forest this year. Now, Brighton are really, really hard to judge right now, I feel like. Wait, does anyone know where Brighton are going to finish? They've let go of Basuma. Is Cucurella about to leave the club? They're saying he's not going anywhere. Romano's reporting that he's already in the Chelsea training ground, being best mates with the Chelsea players. I don't know what to believe. What I do believe is that Brighton are in a weaker position this year than they were last year. I think a lot of their season is going to hinge on their striking options. Morpay could potentially be on his way out the door. I think Undav and Welbeck, potentially the 2 players they are going to be looking towards for goals. I know Undav had an amazing year last year in Belgium, but a big step up. That said, I look across their team and I feel like they're just always a team that perform pretty well. And even with the departures they've had, they've brought in 1 or 2 new players. I think they're probably going to get a bit more done before the transfer window closes. And I think they'll be good enough to avoid a relegation fight this year. Now, I'm umming and ahhing about this next one because I've got them in 12th. But the more I think about it, the more I think they might struggle a little bit. Wolverhampton Wanderers, without Raul Jimenez to start the year, they look a little bit light in the striking department, although they have been linked with a player or 2. As I sit here and record things right now, however, their only signing is Nathan Collins. Nathan Collins isn't the kind of player I think is going to make a meaningful difference to Wolverhampton Wanderers' season. Now, when he gets player of the match and I look like a mug, don't leave any comments, in 8 months. Like, don't come back and tell me he was amazing. I just feel like a lot of Wolves' season this year is going to hinge on where are the goals going to come from. I think Neto, who missed a lot of football last year, there's going to be pressure on him. I think Podence as well. For some reason, they've loaned out Fabio Silva. And I don't know why they've loaned him out, because they've not replaced him with anyone yet. It's one of those players who they signed for a lot of money. He looks maybe a little bit inexperienced, a bit unprepared for the Premier League. But I don't really understand loaning him out without having a ready-made player to come in now. Obviously, Jimenez is injured. They're going to have to sign a striker. My concern right now is I'm judging them in their current form and thinking maybe I've been generous. But if they get a striker, I think they've got an okay squad. They're a team that always tend to, defy the expectations I have for them. I don't think they're going to be down in the depths of the bottom of the table, but I don't see them getting a top half finish this year. I think if they can finish 12th, that probably would be as good as it's going to get for them. Okay, this is the first one that might be majorly controversial. Villa fans, please don't murder me in my sleep. Please, thank you. 11th place, Aston Villa. Now, do I think if Villa finish 11th, that is good enough in the eyes of the Villa ownership? I probably don't think it is. I think Gerrard could be in a bit of trouble. I know they've signed Diego Carlos. I know they've signed Boubacar Kamara, who I think is going to be a really useful player for them in that kind of defensive midfielder position. I think Marvelous Nakamba got injured for an extended period. They didn't really have someone who they could bring in. I think Carlos is going to add a bit of quality at the back. But I look at their team, and with the exception of those additions, you know, Robin Olsen is a good signing. Signing Coutinho permanently is great. But as a Liverpool fan, I can tell you now, Coutinho will have runs of games where he looks like the best player in the league. He'll also have runs of games where you just want to pull your hair out, and he's really frustrating to watch. And I think they got a lot of the former last year, Villa. I think a lot of Villa's success this year is going to hinge on the likes of Leon Bailey and Buendia, players they signed last year who really didn't perform. I could be massively selling them short. It's predictions for a reason. I'm not going to get these all right. For me right now, and it is just a bit of a gut instinct, I think Villa are going to struggle to get a top half finish this year. Now, in at number 10, I think Crystal Palace fans might have been looking around thinking, is he forgotten about us? Jack, Palace, where are we? You're here. Top half, Crystal Palace. Patrick Vieira last year worked miracles. And I know that Gallagher is going to be a massive, massive miss for them. I think Czech Decore is going to have a lot of pressure on his shoulders to really step up and fill that void in the team. But I really like Crystal Palace's team. I feel like they're a team full of workhorses. And especially with the 5-sub rule, that Palace are just always a team that have had quite exciting players who maybe aren't the most technically gifted, but are just physical specimens. I think there's going to be times this year where against tiring defences, Palace are able to bring on players like Jeffrey Schlupp. I can't believe I've name-dropped Jeffrey Schlupp as the impact player. Basically, I think Palace benefit from the 5 subs quite a lot. I think Vieira got them really well organised last year. They've been on an upwards trajectory, and I kind of back that to continue next year. What I will say is they've not added a whole lot of players to their squad just yet. I'd like to see them add a player or two more, but I've just kind of got a bit of a soft spot for them. I think Vieira's done exceptionally well so far, and I kind of back that progress that he's made with the club to continue. 9th place, Newcastle. Now, I should add a caveat here. Really, with these predictions, I should do it on the teams as they exist, as I sit and record them. But in Newcastle's instance, they've got to sign some players, right? I feel like last year they did amazingly. Second half of the season, their home form was absolutely exceptional. I think they lost 2 games at home all season under Eddie Howe. And I feel like that progress is going to continue. They have to spend money at some point. I feel like if Newcastle don't spend any money, knock them down 5 places. I think, you know, lower half of the mid-table is kind of where they'll be at. But I think they're going to add strength. I like their team a lot. And for whatever reason, I feel like they're going to be up there, kind of challenging for the fringe European spots. I would not be surprised to see Newcastle in the Conference League next year. That's a weird sentence to say, isn't it? Now, on my stream recently, we were talking about Leicester. And I said that Leicester could be in trouble this year. I made the outlandish prediction that Leicester could get relegated. And obviously, I've got them in at 8th. So have I backpedaled a little bit? I think Leicester's season is going to go one of 2 ways. I think the players who were out last year are going to come back. They're maybe going to sign a goalkeeper. Everything's going to click. They're going to be amazing. I know on the flip side, they have got some FFP issues. It looks like they're going to struggle to spend any money, really, without selling anyone on. Could they lose Maddison? Could they lose Fofana? Would they reinvest the money they maybe get from selling on some players like that? There's a lot up in the air at the moment with Leicester. I feel like this is the first Premier League season in a little while where probably more than half the league have plenty of transfer business. I expect them to get done before the transfer window slams shut at the end of the month. A few years ago we had it, didn't we, where the transfer window closed before the start of the season. I feel like if that was the case now, it'd be hell on earth for a lot of these teams. But as things stand, I've got Leicester up in 8th, and I think they'll be fine. I think Brendan Rodgers will do okay. But there's a world in which everything goes horribly, horribly wrong. And by the end of the year, the King Power's on fire and they're relegated. And it's like the Rapture. But yeah, I think they'll either do okay and fine and be top half, or it could be a really bad year. I kind of hope it's the latter. because then this video is going to be correct. But in covering my ass, I will say that on our stream, twitch.tv/workthespace, link down below, I did express some concern. That concern does still exist. Now, in 7th place, West Ham. Now, West Ham are one of those teams that there's that trope, isn't there? They qualify for Europe, and then the following season, we all sit here and say, you know, they have all these extra games. They're going to struggle to manage it. They're going to struggle in the league. And yet last year, they had all those matches, and they still got European football. I think David Moyes is doing something very, very special with West Ham. Now, are they overperforming slightly? Perhaps. I look at Skamaka, and I think he could be a really, really good addition for them as a striker. I feel like as the season went on last year, Antonio wobbled a little bit after a really good start to the season. I think for West Ham United, 7th is probably where they can expect to be. I love Jared Bowen. I think he's going to be essential to their success. I expect him to have a very good first half to the season. He is one of a few players who needs to impress in order to make it into the England squad for Qatar. And I think he will be able to do the business for them. So the top 6 for this year, I think, is going to be just the 6 teams we expect to see up there. I know there's a World Cup. That could throw up some spanners in the works for these bigger teams that have the vast majority of their squad at the competition. On the flip side, I think the 5-sub rule is going to benefit them. But of all the teams in the top 6, the one who I think is going to struggle the most this year is Manchester United. I feel like under Ten Hag, they're in a period of transition here. Obviously, Ronaldo looks like he could be forcing his way out. I feel like that situation needs to be resolved as soon as possible. In terms of signings they've made, I think Eriksen and Lisandro Martinez are good deals. I think they probably are still looking at another attacker. I know Anthony has been linked with them from Ajax, although that one's gone a little bit cold. Will De Jong join them? Nobody seems to know at this moment in time. Ultimately, I think this is a season of transition for Manchester United. I would not be surprised to see Ronaldo phased out the team. And in doing that, maybe his heroics that last year secured them some important wins in Europe and some important points in the Premier League won't be there. And I think for Manchester United fans, maybe 6th would be seen as a disappointment. But I just feel like with where they're going, the rebuild progress that is going on, I'm struggling to see them making massive strides on the pitch this year in terms of results. I think if they can just see some progress in squad building, moving out some players who don't want to be there, trying to find an identity more than anything, I think that would almost be a more successful season than perhaps finishing in 5th place versus 6th. So speaking of 5th place, for the 2nd consecutive year, I'm predicting Arsenal to miss out on Champions League football narrowly. Now, Arsenal, very exciting team. Gabriel Jesus, I think, is going to be an amazing addition for them this year. I think this season, Odegaard will probably play higher up the pitch, and I think that could benefit him massively. I look across the signings they've made, the likes of Zinchenko's been added. They've added some really good depth across the board. But I feel like when you look at their signings, they're ones that aren't for the future necessarily, but are part of a longer-term plan that Arteta's got. Fabio Vieira is going to be a really useful creative outlet for them in the midfield. But on the whole, I think they're lacking a little bit of that immediate quality right now to break into the top 4. I think they maybe could capitalise on the team we're going to talk about next slipping up a little bit and maybe having a bad year. But as things stand right now, whilst I really like Arsenal's squad, I love the direction they're going in. And I think in the next few years, they could be a team challenging for the Premier League title. For this season, I think the Champions League is just going to be out of reach. 4th place, Chelsea. Yep. Chelsea are making deals, though. Chelsea are a weird one. Does anyone know what to make of Chelsea? Obviously, Werner could be on his way out. Lukaku's already left. Havertz is probably going to be their striker to start the year, which just feels weird to say. Obviously, Raheem Sterling's come in to really add some quality in the final third. I think it's going to be interesting to see how he is deployed. There's a lot of questions over the defence. Will Tuchel play a 4 at the back or a 5 at the back? Rudiger's left. That is a big, big miss for them, I think, going into this year. They have brought in Koulibaly, who I think is going to be some really good quality. I do expect them to sign a player or 2 more. I'm a little bit worried that they're lacking in a couple of areas. I think they need some kind of goal scorer. I mean, it doesn't look like they're going to sign anyone, at least at the time of recording, and it does look like Werner could be on his way out. I would not be surprised to see them sign Cucurella potentially. There's rumours they could go in for Frankie de Jong. I still feel like that, as I said, they're a Saka short perhaps. They have still got Batshuayi at their club. Could Michy Batshuayi play? I feel like if he plays, stuff's gone horribly wrong. New ownership's come in. Tuchel doesn't seem that happy with his squad. I think the biggest risk for Chelsea really is they've got such a bloated squad. There's a fair few players who don't want to be there. Between now and the transfer window closing, they've got a lot of work to do on their squad. 3rd place, Tottenham. Is that controversial? I like what Conte's doing at Tottenham. I like what Tottenham are doing in general. I think Perisic is a really, really good signing. I think Basuma adds a bit of solidity in the midfield that perhaps was lacking in terms of some real steel. Lenglet's joined on loan from Barcelona. Richarlison from Everton. I know he's suspended to start the season. They've spent £60 million on him. You have to imagine, whilst he's probably going to be a kind of super sub kind of player, Richarlison, I think Kulusevski, Son and Kane will start the year. He's got to play minutes, and I'm kind of intrigued to see what he can do with slightly better quality players around him. Spurs have an identity. Last year they had a great season to get to the Champions League. I do wonder if the Champions League campaign is going to distract them a little bit. Maybe all those fixtures are going to pile up. When you look at their squad, they've got depth, but I don't know if the quality to really mount a sustained title challenge is there. I think the top two are going to run away with it a little bit this year. But I have a sneaking suspicion Spurs could be best of the rest. I think with Son, with Kane, you know they've got quality. You know they've got goals. I really, really like what Conte did second half of the season. They got fourth last year. I think there's going to be a bit more steady progression this year. Okay, top two, Man City, Liverpool. I'm a Liverpool fan. Should I be biased? Could I be biased? I could be. I'm not going to be. I absolutely think that either team could win the Premier League. I think this is another season where both teams will be pushing towards 100 points, and it might not be enough for one of them. Obviously, Man City, let's discuss the elephant in the room. They've signed Erling Haaland. If you play Football Manager like I do, and I mean, if you're watching this video, I'm going to assume you play Football Manager. The man has probably terrorised you in Football Manager this year. I think he's going to terrorise the Premier League this year. I think he could end up being top goal scorer, even if he isn't playing each and every minute. I think he's someone who will be rotated around, but the blessing that Man City have versus Liverpool is I do feel like they've just got that little bit of extra quality. I think it says a lot that with Man City, they've let go of Zinchenko and Gabriel Jesus, and they've still probably got the best depth in the Premier League, despite selling two players who are going to be starting for Arsenal, you have to imagine, this year. They've added in Alvarez as well, who I think is going to be a really good addition as an attacking option on the bench for them. For Man City, they want to progress in the Champions League. They want to do well there. But as they've been able to show in recent years by going on fairly deep Champions League runs, albeit not winning it, they're pretty good at juggling things on all fronts. I think they've got the quality there. As for Liverpool, I think Liverpool are in for a really good season again this year. I don't think there's any reason to doubt that. I think we know what to expect with Liverpool. I'm kind of interested to see what kind of tactical progress might be made with Darwin Núñez coming into the team. Are we going to see Liverpool change from the 4-3-3 that after the Champions League final they were labelled with being predictable with by Ancelotti? Maybe they're going to switch to a 4-2-3-1. Maybe Firmino plays centre attacking mid. Obviously, players like Fabio Carvalho have come into the team. I think that's pretty exciting from a fan point of view. Unfortunately, I do feel that all those additions aren't enough when you compare it to the existing team that Man City have. I think these two teams are going to be running away at the top of the table. I would give it kind of 7 out of 10 seasons to Man City. I see worlds where Liverpool win it. Obviously, the World Cup's going to be interesting because both Haaland and Salah aren't attending it. I think this year's going to be an interesting one. I feel like come January, come the World Cup being over, the state of these squads could make or break things. Injuries have decided title races between these teams before. I wouldn't be surprised if it happens again this year. Now, I mentioned it already. Top goal scorer, I think, is going to be Erling Haaland this year. In terms of the player with the most assists, I think Martin Odegaard's going to have a really, really good year. As I said, I think he's going to get pushed higher up the pitch with the new additions in the midfield for Arsenal. I think he could end up being a really good creative outlet. They've got Gabriel Jesus, who I think will get goals for them. In terms of first manager sacked, I'm going to go with Lampard. I feel like Everton could have a really slow start to the year this year. They've already shown they're not afraid to cut their managers when they're not playing very well. With Calvert-Lewin out for the start of the year, with Richarlison having left the club, there's a void there in that team, and I do fear that Lampard could end up being the fall guy for them. Anyway, folks, this was a slightly different video today. Last time I did one of these videos, it went on for like an hour and a half. I've managed to cut this one down. I've tried to be more succinct with my views. I hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know your Premier League predictions down below. Top goal scorer, top assister, first manager sacked. Let me know who you think is going to get relegated, who's going to finish in the top 4, and who will win the league. I look forward to you all telling me how I'm wrong, and we'll all come back to this video in 3 months and laugh as we prepare for a World Cup and realise that all my predictions were horrifically wrong. But this is an entertainment product, not a serious... I mean, it's meant to be serious. I've tried to be serious, but I need to cover my arse when it all goes wrong. When Mitrovic gets 20 goals this year, Fulham, the best team in the world, and I always knew they were going to stay up. If you have enjoyed today's video, do drop a like on it. If you'd like to see more videos like this one, let me know it down in the comments. Until next time, take it easy, enjoy the start of the Premier League season, join the FPL League, link is in the top of the description. It is me, Jack, and I'll see you guys on the next one. I'm out.